Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. Members of the Flat Earth Society claim to believe the Earth is flat. Walking around on the planet's surface, it looks like it feels flat, so they deem all evidence to the contrary, such as satellite photos of Earth as a sphere, to be fabrications of round Earth conspiracy, orchestrated by NASA and other government agencies. With me today is a new guest, Shelley. And welcome, Shelley. How are you?
Hey, welcome. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. And Kevin, we've had Kevin on for several episodes.
Hello, everyone.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Shelley.
Okay, let's see. I went into this flat Earth kicking and screaming, wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. A friend of mine had started talking about the flat Earth, and he was very intriguing to listen to his show, his radio show. His name was Rob Skiba, and he had done some research on the giants. So I followed Skiba for a while, and all of a sudden he starts talking about this flat Earth thing. And me being a graduate of West Point, I was a big fan of Buzz Aldrin, and he was an alumni there. And I thought, how in the world could this guy even go there, right? And in fact, my story to Flat Earth actually goes beyond that and further back. But I went to space camp when I was, 12 years old. I met Ellen B. Shepard, and I went into West Point to become an astronaut. And so hearing this idea of a flat Earth, I just I was out to prove him wrong. So I started researching it, and that was probably the worst thing I could have done, because I became a bona fide flat earther. The research I couldn't believe that there's absolutely no evidence of a moon landing. And when we go out and measure the curve, we cannot measure it. According to NASA and of science in general, if we have a circumference of an Earth that's roughly 24,000 miles in circumference, we can use geometry, and we can use algebra to determine what should the curve be. And it roughly works out to be about 8 inches per mile squared. And we've gone out on different expeditions, different projects to try to measure the curve of the Earth. And the bottom line is we see too far. And so I just... I became a flat earther. And then as you start going down the rabbit hole, as you well know, there's so many things to uncover. And it's wow, everything that we've pretty much been told is a lie. And so now it's just kind of an exploration to find out what is the truth. So that's kind of my backstory on flat Earth. And I mean, there's just so much evidence out there. Like I said, from the fake moon landings to a lot of the things that NASA does. It's what are they hiding? Why are they lying to us? Is really the question. So I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, well, Nathan, have you heard this? I mean, one of the things as we read, we did some research obviously on it also. You heard this Nathan Thompson said he was reproached a man that said he was a NASA employee in Starbucks in May 2017, and Thompson, who's the founder of the official Flat Earth and Global Discussion page. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I'm friends with Nathan, yeah.
Yeah, shouted that he had proof that the Earth is flat, and apparently saying an astronaut drowning was that proof, and that NASA is lying. Well, we obviously know that NASA would have to be lying if they're, but do you know about this astronaut drowning thing? I saw nothing else about this anywhere.
I'm not sure if they drowned it, but I will say that, or drowned. I will say that they found, he was having trouble breathing because there was water in his helmet.
Right.
And NASA came back and said, hey, that's just normal because there's water in the lines and blah, blah, blah. Well, what you'll find is, I took a trip to Houston, and I also know Nathan. I'm good friends with him, actually.
Oh, good.
Well, they do a lot of underwater training, and I knew this way back when I went to Huntsville, Alabama, when I went to space camp. We would do these missions under the water because they said that it simulates, what gravity would be, zero gravity would be, and blah, blah, blah. But what's funny is that there's many ways you can fake gravity, but we've seen these bubbles in space. When they go on their spacewalks, if you watch really closely, sometimes they'll do a really bad job, and you can actually see these bubbles that will be caught on camera. And how is that possible? Well, it can only be possible if they're underwater. So there's evidence of course they train that way, but the pictures that they show are it looks like they're underwater for sure, and some of these videos that they show. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, once you start looking and analyzing the evidence, you're like, wait a second. And there was a guy that actually said, when he was doing the missions, the training, it was so close. At one point, he really said you couldn't tell the difference between the training and the real thing. And so to me, that shows evidence of some kind of, either mind control, whatever it is. But yeah, no, they do a really bad job. Sometimes you'll see glitches in the green screen. When you really think, why are they faking it? What are they hiding?
So are you? Well, obviously, you think the moon landing's a fake. Also, you're surmising that.
100% fake. 100% fake. There's Don Pettit. He's gone on the record, and I actually met Don Pettit when I was in Houston, and it was a total fluke thing. We were in mission control, and all of a sudden I hear his voice. His voice is unmistakable. And I turn around and I'm like, it's Don Pettit. I actually got on video, and I asked him a couple questions. But you know what? He said, I go back to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we lost the technology to go there. And it's like, how do you freaking lose technology to go there, right? Why haven't we been back? It's odd. I mean, if you just single-handed, won the Super Bowl, you watch these guys on their first mission, coming back from the moon, they're all downcast. They won't even make eye contact with each other. You're like, somebody just died. Like, why are these guys not, celebrating and telling everybody, about the moon landing? That was with Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins, and of course Buzz Aldrin. Just study the videos of them coming back, and not to mention they just did such a bad job. You figure, how big is the moon compared to the Earth? And we go to the moon and we take this picture. Well, that's the other thing. We don't really have any real pictures, but we get back and we have this picture of the moon, and it's the same size as if you were standing on the Earth taking a picture of the moon. That just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because the moon, the Earth would be so much bigger, but yet it's the same size. It just doesn't make sense.
So so it's flat and Antarctica's in the middle. Is that how it is?
Just imagine it's this clock, and you have north, which is the North Pole, and it's flat, right? So it's flat. And everything going from east to west would be clockwise or counterclockwise. And it's at the edge is an ice ring, the Antarctic ring is what they call it, which they do call it that. And everything from, you're standing in the middle of the clock, everything going outward, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, everything would be south of you. So that ring, the Antarctic ring, is the southern ring. And we don't know if there's land beyond Antarctica. We think there is, according to Admiral Byrd, and according to some of these older history records. What are they hiding? I think that there's more land. They say we can't really go past the 60th parallel, which they cite for reasons of, we want to protect the environment, the penguins, all these things. But it is odd that all the United Nations get together after Admiral Byrd goes down there. Incidentally, the names of his missions were Operation High Jump and Operation Fishbowl. Why would you name operations that? But there's a big ice wall, that kind of contains the oceans. And what he discovered down there, he said, there's so much land. There's this amazing resources down here. And right after that, you get the United Nations, and they agree, we're going to protect this territory. When have you ever in the history of anything seen all of the United Nations get together and say, we're not going to fight over land. We're not going to do any of that at Antarctica. It doesn't make sense. They're always fighting over land. Everybody wants a piece of the land, and down there they decide not to. And then once after Admiral Byrd had done his expeditions, NASA's formed. It becomes militarized. The space program becomes militarized. So you have the outer boundaries of this Earth being government run, and you have the space program, the upper boundaries, if you will, being government run. So they've been hiding this for a while. I think they discovered something with Admiral Byrd that they weren't expecting, and they had to, it's all about power and control. The first rule of power is you try to stay hidden. Don't tell people where they're at, and then, control it with the government. We're like, okay. So it is this big thing. We're not the Flat Earth Society. We're definitely kind of our own grassroots movement, and we're growing leaps and bounds. And people, there's a lot of ridicule that happens, and so people don't just become a flat earther for the fun of it. It's definitely not a road that's fun, but if you want the truth, it's definitely a road to go down.
Well, it's you're where the UFOers, so to speak, were at.
Okay.
70 years ago. We don't come out and talk about that, because you're nuts. And then as things came along, as things moved along, people are more open-minded. They're open-minded. I think they're more open-minded to this concept. Although it is, phenomenal. Is the ice wall like the Game of Thrones? Have you seen Game of Thrones? They have that wall. It's like of ice. Is it like that?
Yeah, it's a great example. Absolutely. A lot of times you'll watch art imitate life, and it's exactly what it's like. And it's interesting. In the Game of Thrones, I believe, isn't there also a dome, or is that another? Did you see Game of Thrones? It might be another show. No. But the ice wall is exactly. What's beyond there, we don't know. And, you talk about aliens and things like that. And I will say this, that the word extraterrestrial actually means extra land. And so are there life forms outside of this landmass of Antarctica that goes beyond? Maybe there's other ponds, sort of what we call ourselves little pond, this pond of Earth. Is there beyond the treacherous, cold elements? Beyond there, are there another little Earth ponds like us? Possibly. That is what the word extraterrestrial means. So I wouldn't put it out there that there couldn't be. But when we think of space inside this Earth, this enclosed system with a dome, the space is really from the bottom of the Earth to the top of this dome, the space inside there. And that's where the sun and moon and stars all reside. The stars are actually kind of attached to the firmament, and they move. The sun and moon move, but the Earth stands still. It doesn't move. People who, believe in the Bible, or various cultures from different religions, not just the Bible, the origins of those, all have this enclosed system of where the Earth is flat, and then there's the sun, moon, and stars inside this Earth container, if you will. So yeah, I don't know, there's just so much that is being uncovered now. It's like the sky's the limit, there's a glass ceiling. All these little what do you call it, common phrases now have different meaning. And of course things are hidden in plain sight. When you start to really look at it, you're like, wow, that resembles a flat Earth, or the Game of Thrones, or these, we see The Simpsons had this episode where they're playing baseball, and they hit this ball, it goes through the dome, and water comes down, so there's all these little truth in plain sights everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty. Now, could it be? In the Bible, the Earth was flat, but it was square. Is it?
Yeah, it has four corners.
Yeah. So, is it possible that it's flat, but yet it's like a square, or do we know it's round, or we're thinking it's round? I should say.
It could be a circle inscribed in a square. That's according to the Bible with the four corners. And they say like that the earth is, God's footstool, and he sits upon the circle of the earth in the sides of the north, where the north would be obviously above. And all we really know with a compass is something that points north, right? A compass doesn't point south per se. So could there be like a Tesla coil in the middle of the earth where the moon and the sun get their power from this Tesla coil, which would be the throne of God? Tesla, he was pretty interesting character too. You talked about if you want to know everything for the universe, it's, what do you say, 3, 6, and 9? It's all frequencies and things like that.
Yeah, we could do a whole segment on Tesla.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Nikolai is a big story. Absolutely.
Yeah, big time.
Is the Earth spinning like a record, or like if you flip in a coin, or how are we thinking this is working, or
Okay. Yeah, good question. So it's not moving. The Bible says the earth doesn't move, and we've actually proven this with snipers, and there is no such thing as Coriolis. And Bob Nodell's a good friend of mine. He has a group of people called FE Core, and they've done different experiments to determine if the earth is actually moving or is it the luminous ether. And Michelson Morley discovered this way back when, that it was actually the luminous ether that's moving. As far as like what's underneath the earth, so if you imagine a coin and it has pillars, underneath the earth would be like the great deep, or what they call it Sheol, the place where people live when they die. And I'm not saying like a literal hell, people are burning there. No, it's just the grave. Is the earth hollow under there? Possibly. Are there portals down there? Probably. We don't know exactly, but we've only, drilled into the earth. How deep has anyone ever drilled into the earth? I think it's like 8 feet. It's not far at all. A molten core? No, it can't happen. I mean, maybe, but it's definitely not iron there, because what happens to iron when it gets hot? There's a Curie point, and it loses its magnetic properties. So it can't be this magnetic core of a spinning ball. What moves are the sun, moon, and stars, the luminaries. They move. And everything else, it just stands still. It's not flipping. It's not just, there's not like, Antarctica would be on the edges, and so you have kind of this flat disc of how the land masses sit on this round record, if you will, a stable coin.
So basically, the underside is unexplored. We really don't know. I've read somewhere where it's just rocks. It's just, the underside of or is it also flat on the bottom? Do we know? I mean, we don't really know, but do we think it's flat underneath?
It's possible. I mean, I think of like a snow globe. If you look at a snow globe, there's, it's flat inside there, and there's this dome, which I think is why they call it, the greenhouse effect.
Yeah.
They talk about the earth having this greenhouse thing. And then underneath it, they have pillars, and so what is it standing on? We don't know. Above the dome is water, and probably under the earth, I think, is possibly, if you've ever seen Stranger Things, the underside, the underworld.
Right.
It is possible that stuff does exist under there, but I sure as heck, they talk about the hollow earth theory, and as a matter of fact, Admiral Byrd was kind of big on the hollow earth theory. I think the flat earth and the hollow earth are not mutually exclusive. I think you could have a hollow earth in this model for sure. Like, are there portals, are there tunnels under there for traveling, and what exists under there? Probably. There probably is kind of this hollow thing that could happen under there. Yeah, we don't know. But of course, like I said, we've only, Americans or whoever, anybody on this earth, I think the world record for the ability to drill down, I don't know, is it 8 8 miles or
I
something.
think it's 8
It's
to
not
10
very
miles
far.
or something like
I think
that.
I said 8 feet.
And
Yeah,
it's
8
hot.
miles, I
It
think
gets
is what that is.
gets hot, but they don't they don't know. I mean, they're assuming it's something. The reason for it getting hotter is the middle of the Earth, the magma, and all that. But
Yeah, think about it. You couldn't have that. So if let's say we went with that theory. Okay, the Earth is like this hot ball of something in the middle, this hot magma core, and then you could not have that and have a magnet. You couldn't, because there's a Curie point. Iron. They say it's an iron core, a full of hot something, burning
liquid
molten
lava.
iron, right?
Yeah.
You can't have that and have magnetic properties, because the Curie point, at that heat level it would lose all its magnetic properties. So right there, we know for a fact that can't happen.
Yeah, it's interesting with what's underneath the Earth. I mean, one of the theories for UFOs is that they possibly can come from inside the Earth somewhere. I know I read when I was younger. I read a book called The Hollow Earth, and Richard Byrd I think it was Richard Byrd, had discovered when he went to the North Pole. I don't know which one he went to actually, but found plant life and warm water coming out of certain areas, and they didn't go into a great detail about that, but the Nazis also were trying to get up there and find this hollow entrance into the Earth. I mean, and this really doesn't disprove anything either way, but there could be something underneath. The UFOs could be coming from. I hate to drag you into UFO land, but it could be. They could be coming from inside the Earth. There's lots of theories.
Yeah, or under. Yeah, I think they're probably interdimensional beings, or they have a way of traveling from these different ponds, outside of this realm. And it's possible, not outer space per se, but just this outer land, extraterrestrial, extra land outside of Antarctica.
Right.
They're able to get through, like you said, maybe there is this portal under the Earth that allows them to travel that way. It wouldn't surprise me, because if you think about it, the way this Earth is designed with Antarctica, just in general, it's treacherous. It's tough to get there. So if I was the creator of this Earth and I didn't want someone going to these outer ponds, I would make it really difficult for them to get there. So maybe they have technology that allows them to travel under the Earth and through these like portals under the Earth, or they have this ability to get past the ice wall or whatever.
Right. That's interesting. So we don't know what's on the bottom. We don't know if it's flat or on the other side, or if it could be that it's flat, but yet it's desolate and round on the other side. It's just, we don't know. Do we have any idea what this thing is on the bottom?
I mean, if you look at the biblical cosmology, it's these pillars that are standing on basically this floor, if you will, of a big giant water. It could be like this big ocean that we're living under, and then what's underneath the flat Earth, it would just be more water, but yet it's the pillars are on the ocean floor, so it's stable. It can't move. Could it be like under the flip side? Could it be like a ball Earth? I don't think so. We don't know. We don't have any evidence of that. So just using kind of biblical cosmology and ancient cosmology, people think, oh, they were stupid. They didn't know anything. And that is not true at all. If we look at some of these records that's been hidden from us, hidden history, we find incredible technology. I mean, just go into the whole Egyptians and Peru, down in these blocks that I forget the name of, the Cusco blocks. That doesn't make sense. How did these get formed? How did they have this technology? They were brilliant. So something existed, the mud flood and all these things that have been hidden from us. History has been completely botched. But yeah, we just don't know. But according to the ancient history that we're uncovering, there is no evidence of a ball. There's absolutely no curve. We can't find evidence of it at all.
So I have to ask.
Go ahead.
So, hi, this is Kevin Shelley. So I'm curious about going back to the space flight thing and Colonel Aldrin. His I don't know if you guys saw the reaction that when that guy asked him and asked him to swear on the Bible that he had landed on the moon, and he ended up punching the guy in the mouth. Yeah. I don't know if you had seen that, but it kind of makes sense that his violent reaction to a critic. Certainly, if he had actually landed on the moon, who cares? Everybody has an opinion about something. But my question is, why would we have space flights then? Are we thinking that they're unmanned?
Absolutely good question. Are the space flights unmanned? Well, we do know that when you watch the shuttle go up, or you watch a rocket go up, it arcs in a fashion that they're saying, oh, we're trying to get through the window of space, so we have to kind of, not necessarily go straight up. It goes up and then it curves to the right. Kind of like Disney. Disney had that little, when they use their wand, that magic wand, and it kind of goes to the right. It's a similar, it's a cartoon, really. Yeah. So yeah, there are manned flights. What's interesting, if you do some research, it's going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Remember the Challenger explosion?
Yes,
remember
of course.
Yeah, remember like Krista McAuliffe and all the people that went up?
Yes, tragic, yes.
Well, if you do some research, those people are still alive. What? As a matter of fact, they still have the same names. And they look exactly like the astronauts that went up and died. So what's that about?
Oh, that's new. I've never heard that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one. Holy cow, that's something to look into. Holy Toledo.
That's another episode right there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So without surprise,
holy,
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, they're unmanned. Okay. And they go probably into the Bermuda Triangle, is my guess of where they land, or they don't go into space. And that's, if we follow the money, NASA makes $58 million a day. And so if you follow the money, what are we getting from that? When you study these pictures and, going back, not to get too far off base here, but going back, to Buzz, you had mentioned Buzz Aldrin and that reporter, I forget his name, but
I forget him as well.
I think he did Funny Thing Happens on the Way to the Moon. That was the name of the movie, which is a great movie. Everyone should watch that. The evidence is just botched up. Yeah, so Colonel Aldrin, Buzz Aldrin, he's, went to West Point. So I was a big fan of his, and and now I wonder, why did he punch him in the face?
Yeah, that was, wow.
Yeah. So he
obviously struck a nerve.
Aldrin, he was interviewing this little girl was interviewing him about, going back to the moon, and she asked him, well, why haven't we gone back to the moon? He goes, that's not a question for a little girl. Oh. He says, the truth is, we didn't. Oh. Like, it's like he flipped, I guess, what do you say when you tell the truth on accident? He told the truth there, and we never did go to the moon. How come we've never been back? Supposedly, we're going back in 2024. And that was my question for Don Pettit. You said we lost the technology to go there. Yeah. Well, what technology are you going to be utilizing to go to the moon? What technology? Because supposedly you can't get past the Van Allen belts. And even with this Orion mission going to Mars, that was one of the things that NASA said, we have this problem of trying to get through the Van Allen belts. Well, how'd y'all get through the Van Allen belts when you went to the moon? This big blanket of radiation. So they can't keep their story straight. And I don't know if they're not doing a good job anymore of lying, because people can see through the holes. But yeah, we want our money back. We're coming back.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Definitely want a refund.
Yeah, we want our money back.
That is
it
crazy.
begs the question of why would they do it? Why would they fake it? Well, it's possible that they did have this Russian space race, and we were worried that we had to put a man on the moon, even though every single mission prior to that that moon mission goes off without, we have that, I forget the name of the astronaut that burned up. And he was actually trying to tell people, hey, this is a joke. He hung a lemon on the door of his his room. I only know parts of the story, but turns out like he was trying to tell people, hey, this is a lemon. It's not true. And then he ends up burning up in the.
That's Apollo 1. Yeah, they all.
Is that Gus Grissom?
Yeah, Grissom and White, and I think it was Chaffee. And I think that. I remember them. I saw something about that, and they indicated that they actually hung a lemon on the outside of the aircraft. They felt that it was not going to be a good ship to fly, if in fact it was going to fly. And of course, they ended up burning up tragically. And another curious thing about that whole thing is Apollo 11 is Armstrong. He was, he became a recluse. I mean, he didn't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
Buzz was more outspoken in the media than Neil was, and of course Michael Collins just passed, so we'll never know his version of the story. At least I don't know, but excuse me. But yeah, interesting.
Doesn't that raise a red flag for people to say when they got back from the moon, they were of course in seclusion.
Yes.
But then when they come out to talk to the reporters, they're all downcast. They won't make eye contact. Yeah, nobody was like cheering or anything. They were just like something really bad had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we go, and I was talking about this with one of my good friends comes on here, Dr. Bill, and we haven't colonized Mars, or excuse me, we haven't colonized the moon yet. We're already exploring Mars. I mean, wouldn't we put a colony on the moon to experiment and make all the mistakes we're going to make in space before we move on to Mars? It just seems like, everything's out of order. Yeah.
Totally. You're right on there. And of course, they would be making money. They would have hotels up there. They would be like, get your first round trip ticket to Mars and, pay all this money. So it's like, it makes absolutely zero sense. What was it? Newsweek came out back in, I think, 2019, where they kind of moved the goalpost a little bit. They said, oh, the moon is now inside of Earth's atmosphere.
What?
And so then that, of course, it's a Newsweek article that came out, and they said, oh, yeah, we're going to kind of move the goalpost. Now the moon is inside Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, my God.
And we're like, okay, well, if that's the case, then did we even go to space? And the answer is no. So they can't have it both ways. They can't say we went to the moon and we went to outer space. Of course, outer space is supposedly only defined at the Kármán line, which I think is 62 miles. But then you kind of wonder, they changed that a lot too. And it's like an aircraft above a certain amount too is also considered a satellite. And NASA's really good at setting up satelloons. You can kind of research this. In fact, they would do it from Antarctica too, but they send up these satelloons, which are nothing but balloons. So people say, well, what about satellites? There's all these satellites up there. We get our space. We don't get our space program. We get our TV program from satellites, all this stuff. Well, it turns out these aren't even real, like, satellites as people think of, space junk up there. No, they're balloons. Their balloons are their high-flying aircraft.
Wow.
And so what is the ISS? The ISS, I believe, and I'm doing more research on it, is a U-2 plane with hologram technology, which they've known and had. So underneath the plane, it actually looks like the ISS is up there, but it's not. It's a high-flying airplane. Because you think about it, how big is the ISS? It's not much bigger than a football field, and it's supposedly up there like 300 some miles in low Earth orbit, which they say that's the highest we can go. We can't go past low Earth orbit. And then you say, okay, well, how big is an airplane? A 747? Not very big, and you can barely see that with the naked eye.
Yeah.
But then we're supposed to believe that you can see something as big as a football field, 300 some miles up. It just doesn't make sense. It would make sense that it would be this high-flying aircraft, which is I think the U2 with the holographic technology on its belly.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So do you believe in? I mean, I would say believe? Do you acknowledge UFOs or aliens and that kind of thing? With what you're? I know you're kind of studying. Well, it sounds like you are studying the flat Earth theory. How do UFOs and extraterrestrial do they fit into this at all?
Yeah, so extraterrestrial is it. The word itself just means extra land. And are there beings out there? Are there some kind of intelligent life force outside of this Earth, this flat Earth, um, on these extra lands? Yeah, it's possible. People will say, okay, they're demons, they're interdimensional beings. According, they highly intelligent, very intelligent demons or fallen angels or something outside of a human form. Yes, I totally believe that's possible. And the structure gives it, like, is there this outer space? Well, if you define Earth, inside this, if you look at a snow globe, is there life outside of this snow globe? Yeah, I think there definitely could be. There is. Okay, where do they exist? Well, they could exist one of two places. There's outer lands, kind of like Earth pods, like what we live in, are outside, extended beyond the Antarctic ice wall, or they exist under the Earth, inside the Earth, this area that's what we call Sheol, this land inside the Earth, not like inside a ball, but inside, like, under the ground and tunnels and things, or they exist like us, just different parts of this extended plane.
Well, they could be us from the future. There's all kinds of different concepts.
Oh man, that's crazy.
They just come. They're us. I mean, this is what we evolved into this gray. I mean, as you can see, humans, as humans evolve over, I don't know if it could be millions of years. However, it would have to be if we evolved to that point. But with the flat Earth theory, is there space? We have planets like Earth and ponds. Yeah. You still believe that there's others out there, and there's still the universe, and there's yes. So it's still has. We don't know if they're if we have beings or anything on them. Like, we don't know now, but
right. Yeah. So if you imagine, like, if you look at maps of like ancient Asian maps. I'm fascinated with maps because they tell the story, right? True maps, true navigation maps back from, they've had maps forever. I mean, we used to travel by vessels forever. There's this idea of a mud flood that Earth was, kind of during this reset, as they started uncovering things. The railroads weren't really built. They were just uncovered. They just existed for a long time. So, and we have evidence of these mud floods, these megalithic structures that you can go look. They're buried. And even houses, if you go and look in Chicago back in the early 30s, they had the World Fair in Chicago. And this incredible technology that they had just back then, and we have pictures of it. So these pictures are emerging of this incredible civilization just a few hundred years ago. History is not what we've been told. It is completely fabricated. So what are they hiding? Well, they're probably hiding the shape of the Earth, the technology that we've had. You say, like, humans evolving, could they be aliens from the future, based on like this maybe we live in a simulation according to Elon Musk, who I don't really trust that guy either, but maybe we live in a simulation, kind of like the Matrix, and there's these intelligent humans who've figured out through technology, and they look kind of like us, but they're different. Are they them? And they're able to travel, possibly. I don't know if they can travel back in time. They certainly can travel through time and forward. But yeah, we don't know. But as I was saying, like with technology and of course the history that they've hidden from us, yeah, so the universe actually just means one, universe. It's the word we get from university. It's this idea of, it's been evolved through this big bang and spinning balls. And people say, well, how come? How come everything's a ball? And yet you're saying the earth is flat. No, I'm saying that just because it looks like a ball doesn't mean it is a ball. I mean, if you look at the moon, it's always the same size. I mean, it's always the same side. We never see the dark side of the moon. It's always pointing toward us. And so how does that work in an enclosed system? Well, I think it's a hologram. I mean, because you can look at the moon and it's always following us from every person's vantage point. That's hologram for sure.
Well, it sounds
So
like
inside, yeah,
simulation theory. I know you brought that up with Elon and all
yeah.
that. We had a listener email us and says you have to do the simulation theory, which we will do.
Oh,
And of course, everybody,
yeah.
Was that the Matrix thing?
Yeah, it's kind of the Matrix where we're not really. Yeah, it's just like the Matrix. We're not really. We're like puppets, basically. And people are, watching us from somewhere else. I don't really know if I subscribe, although it doesn't really matter if I subscribe. It is something we want to talk about. And it's kind of like this, where as I talk to someone, you hear about flat Earth theory, and you're probably the only one I've run across, and I know you're saying, well, this isn't something people, maybe you guys don't readily, like I'll run across somebody and I'll randomly ask them, hey, do you believe in UFOs? And they don't, it's like there's so much in the news now about it, but you don't see any. Well, I don't want to say any, but you don't see a whole lot of flat Earth in the media. But I understand that. I understand that it's gaining traction in its interest. They say it's 200. I think it's like 200 new people a day become interested in the theory of the flat Earth. So it's gaining,
it's absolutely growing. I mean, we can't measure curvature, so people are kind of like, water always finds its level. I mean, if in the ball Earth theory you have the Earth, which is 70% water. Well, how does it curve? Water doesn't curve. It always finds its level. And this ball that is 70% water, it can't curve. It's why it's called sea level. And they say gravity. Oh, gravity makes it curve and blah, blah, blah. Well, we can't measure it because we've gone out and we cannot see a curve no matter what. They say, oh, well, the boat's going over the curve of the Earth. That proves the Earth is a curve. No, it doesn't. It's circular logic. But when we go out and we test this theory, we've gone out, and I live in Dana Point, and I can actually go out and measure this. I see sailboats supposedly going over the curve every day. But with technology now, I have a P900, Nikon Coolpix P900. I can actually zoom that sailboat right back into my field of view. So is it going over the curve or not? Well, no, it's not. It's going out of our perspective. And so there's so many things that, the higher we go up, the higher the horizon rises to eye level. And they say, oh, well, that's because the Earth is so big. You can't really. No, it's not. You're telling me the Earth is 24,000 miles in circumference. And according to that, 8 inches per mile squared will give me the curvature equation of the Earth. So I should be able to measure a curve. And I can't. None of us can. And so we're just begging the question of okay, well, if there is no curve, then there is no ball, period. There can't be. So is it a simulation theory? Possibly. I mean, that's a better explanation. But we can't go to the moon. We can't land on it. The moon is a light. You think about it. You see this moon, and it's so bright in the sky. And they say, oh, that's a reflection of the sun. But then when we measure the moon temperature, it's cold. It doesn't even heat up. If it was this big ball that's like the this reflection of the sun, and it's got that same light. No, I'm a photographer, and Chris will probably verify this too. When we actually try to expose for the moon, we use a cool light. We use fluorescent lighting. We use those same settings for the moon. If it's really the sun, you wouldn't use those settings to take a picture of it. The final thing I'll say about the moon, and I could go on, is that it's so bright. And when these astronauts supposedly landed on it, it wasn't bright at all. It was dark and dreary and dusty. That's not the picture of the moon that we see with our eyes. It should have been blinding. That light should have been so bright you couldn't even take a picture. And that's another thing. The whole Hasselblad taking this medium format pictures up there with those big clunky gloves, and they supposedly took all these pictures of the moon with a Hasselblad and these big clunky, these gloves. How could you even focus anything? None of it makes sense. There's so many holes in it, and then once you really start going down this rabbit hole, you're like, okay, so what is it? It's clearly not a ball. So where do we live? Where's home? We don't have real pictures. They're all CGI or paintings. And NASA admits this. So give us a real spinning picture of our Earth. They can't do it because they can't take it. They don't have the ability to take a picture of the Earth. This guy Picard, he went up in this first manned weather balloon back in the 1900s, and what he said he discovered was he got high enough to kind of see this flat disc with upturned edges. Well, what does that tell you? It's definitely not a ball. And this was in Scientific American back in the 1918, or I can't remember exactly with my dates, but all the evidence points to a enclosed system, flat Earth, that's, where the sun, moon, and stars go inside. And people say, well, everything's, these spherical objects, whatever. I just said that's a logical fallacy. You look at a basketball court, right? You have a basketball, that's a ball. But you have the court, that's not a ball, that's a flat space. You have the scoreboard, that's not a ball. So people say, oh, all these things are balls, and so we have to be too. No, that's not true at all. First of all, proof we're a ball, we're not. But just because certain objects are balls inside of an enclosed system doesn't mean that everything is. You and I aren't walking around. We're not spherical objects, So yeah, I could go on and on and on about, the Earth being not what we're told it is. I have a documentary that's coming out. I'm a director and a producer, and it's called The Flatlanders, and you can find us on our website. It's called flatsmackfilms.com, flatsmackfilms.com, and it's coming out a docu-series on the flat Earth, and so we're going to be launching our first episode in August of this year, and I hope people will just kind of tune in and give it a fair shake and see, some of the things that we're pointing out, because the Earth is not what we've been told for sure.
So does that documentary kind of give us you've definitely given us a lot of insight on the subject. Does it go deeper into this topic of the flat Earth?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so hard to really scratch the surface of, the flat Earth. We could go down so many avenues, but it's going to be a series because we can't possibly cover everything in an hour or 2 hour documentary. So it's called the Flatlander Series, and you can find, we have a couple trailers out there on YouTube of what it's going to be. But the first episode of a series of 9 to 13 episodes for the first season. We have multiple seasons of this because there's just so many places and topics to uncover with the flat Earth. And it doesn't really stop at the flat Earth. I mean, once you realize, okay, this is not what we've been told, then you can get into other topics too, such as the giants. And of course, you mentioned Admiral Byrd, Operation High Jump, Operation Fishbowl, Operation Paperclip, which was Wernher von Braun, who actually started NASA. He had said one of the last things that they're going to do, and I think he kind of became a flat earther at the end there. He came clean. He said, there's going to be this fake alien invasion. That's going to be the next thing. And we're seeing these topics of, Fox News and all these people saying the government's hiding stuff, and Area 51 is all going to come out. Yeah, it probably will come out, but I don't know. They're going to try to weaponize it or they're going to control it. And if they're going to try to do that, then of course you're going to be in for some fake alien invasion stuff with Operation Bluebeam and Operation Starbeam. Those are things that people can kind of go research too. You know, the government's going to try to spin this however they can. Maybe. I mean, I don't want to just say all bad things about the government, you know, but they do some things that are just kind of like hidden from us, you know?
Yeah, that's what they like to do. Hey, did you hear about the group of people that went on a cruise to find, it was the flat earthers that tried to find the ice wall on a ship? Did you hear anything about that?
I think they were planning on doing that.
Did they ever do? Did they ever get
Yeah,
to do
good friend
that?
of mine, Robbie, I can't remember his last name, but yeah, they were planning on trying to find this ice wall. I don't think it ever did anything. I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat. One of my bucket lists is to go to the North Pole and the South Pole. And, you know, what they say is the South Pole, I think, is just kind of this island. Because you can go research this right now. The South Pole, there's a magnetic south and there's a true south, and it's moving. So, of course, the goalpost is moving, right? But yeah, so there is an ice wall. As far as what they tell us, where it is, we don't know. But I would just probably say go south. From any point where you are right now, if you just keep going south, you should hit something. But it's highly militarized. It's hard to really explore beyond the 60th parallel.
Yeah, I mean, one of the stories I read is that NASA has people that keep people off the ice wall so they can't go over it and find out the truth. I don't know if it's
they have a I don't know what size complement is, but they have Marines down there. And when I heard that, I'm like, why the heck do they have Marines on Antarctica? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason.
I mean,
guarding the truth.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, I know Russia's down there big time. They're doing some big project down there. Something about a hole, digging a hole or something. So there's obviously, but sending the Marines down to Antarctica, which, I mean, nobody wants to go to Antarctica anyway, or at least
no, it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they got, you know,
I don't do cold.
renegade penguins or something down there, you know, killer penguins from that.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
so there's obviously something down there they want hidden, whatever that is.
Right.
More likely the truth.
Yeah, they're hiding it.
So I have to ask, what do you think causes the tides then? If we're supposedly the moon isn't interacting with if it's a hologram, and what do you think causes the tides?
Yeah, so I do think that, you know, the moon and the sun, they're both like anode and cathode batteries, and you have this salt water that, you know, if you ever look at a battery with salt water, you can kind of research that, not to get into too much depth here. So I do think that, well, first of all, if the moon controlled the tides of the ocean, wouldn't they also control mud, you know, puddles and little tiny lakes and stuff like that? I mean, why just the ocean?
Sure.
Well, that's interesting. So what does control the tides? Well, I think that it's just the sun and the moon going in their little perspective circuits. It does create kind of this magnetic pole. There is magnetism, and we can't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
We know how they fake, you know, this gravity thing. We know it's their magnetics, diamagnetic levitation. They can do that. They've done it since the 70s. So yeah, so I think that the Tesla coil being at the north, this big Tesla coil has the ability to create this energy and, you know, study Tesla coils and stuff. With the sun and moon being cathode and anode batteries with the salt water of this big giant ocean going over it, you're going to have these waves, these tides. Wow. Sure. Wow. But is it from the gravity of the moon? No way, because it would affect every water source then. Yeah. Your swimming pool should have tides.
You're right. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so it's a rabbit hole. It's really fun to go down.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you keep it lighthearted, it's dark. If you keep going really down, you're like, why are they hiding this from us? But, you know, man should know who the creator is. I mean, if there's a building, you have a builder. And so I think it just leads people to a creator. And why are they trying to hide the creator? That is the biggest question I have.
That's a big one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Shelley, thank you very much for
Yes.
most insightful. That's probably one of the most insightful episodes we've done.
I have to say, yes.
You know, and really appreciate you joining us. Kevin, thanks for coming along. And thanks, everyone, for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us at Facebook at the Alien Probe Podcast, our website, alienprobe.net, Twitter and Instagram at alienprobepod. Find us on all podcast platforms, and now catch us on YouTube. Thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony. Until next time, thanks, guys.